Welcome back, tech enthusiasts. Today, we're tackling a game changer: global exception handling in Spring Boot. Imagine managing all your exceptions in one place. Sounds amazing, right? By the end of this session, you'll know how to streamline your error handling and make your application more resilient and user-friendly. Ready to elevate your coding skills? Let's dive right in. In our last video, we created a method in the employee controller to handle exceptions, specifically for employee not found exception. But here's a question. What happens if the same employee not found exception is thrown from a different controller, like our demo controller? Will our existing exception handler catch it, or do we need to handle it differently? Let's get started. First, let's create an API in our demo controller that also throws an employee not found exception. Let's copy the existing API in demo controller and paste it. First things first, let's change the URL to demo/id. We'll grab the ID as a path variable so we can decide exactly when to throw the employee not found exception. Alright, let's add a condition. If the ID is greater than 100 or less than 0, we'll throw an employee not found exception. Now let's start the application to see if our exception handler in employee controller catches this exception too. Our application is up and running. Now, let's open Postman. Let's fetch the details for employee ID 10 and check if the exception is being handled correctly. Take a look at the response. It's being handled perfectly, which means our exception handler in employee controller is doing its job brilliantly. Now, let's switch gears and test the new API we created in demo controller. Will it handle exceptions just as smoothly? Let's find out. Look at this. Instead of our custom error message, Spring's default handler stepped in and returned the response. So, it looks like our exception handler in employee controller didn't catch this one. Does that mean we have to write the same code in demo controller? That would lead to a lot of duplicate code. But surely, Spring has a better solution. There must be a way to handle employee not found exception from any controller in a single place. Ready to discover the magic of centralized exception handling? Spring Boot has an amazing solution for handling exceptions globally, especially when the same exception can be thrown from multiple controllers. It's called @controller advice. This powerful annotation lets us manage all our exceptions from a single, centralized place, making our code cleaner and more efficient. Excited to see how it works? Let's explore the magic of @controller advice and take our exception handling to the next level. Alright, let's grab the entire handle employee not found exception code and copy it. This way, we avoid the hassle of rewriting it. We'll remove it from employee controller. Create a new class named Global Exception Handler in the handler package. Next, let's annotate our Global Exception Handler class with @controller advice. This powerful annotation signals to Spring Boot that this class will manage exceptions globally across all controllers. Now, let's paste the code we copied earlier from the employee controller. Now, here's where the magic happens. Anytime an employee not found exception is thrown from any controller, Spring will look at our controller advice to see if there's an exception handler for it. If it finds one, it will automatically call our handler method. Great! We've got employee not found exception covered. But what if other exceptions pop up, like a null pointer exception or something else unexpected? We want to make sure our custom handling applies to all kinds of errors. Let's enhance our global exception handler to catch and manage any exception that comes our way with our custom responses. The beauty of our global exception handler is that we can write multiple exception handler methods for different exceptions. This way, each type of error gets its own custom response. Alright, let's fire up the application and see our enhanced exception handling in action. Our application is up and running. Now, let's switch over to Postman. Now, let's hit the demo API again and check the response. Look at the response. This time we got our custom handling response. It's working perfectly. Now, let's verify it with the Employee Controller API to make sure our exception handling is working for it or not. Alright, let's hit the getEmployeeById API with employee ID 10. Look at the response. Our custom exception handling is working seamlessly with the Employee Controller as well. This shows that our global exception handling is effective across the board. Great job! Here's something exciting. Spring offers a built-in response entity exception handler, which comes with a variety of helpful methods for managing exceptions. By extending this class, we can override its methods and tailor our exception handling to fit our needs perfectly. For example, we can handle common exceptions like method argument not valid exception, HTTP request method not supported exception, and more, all in one place. If you want to handle HTTP request method not supported exception, we can simply override the handle HTTP request method not supported method in our controller advice class to manage this exception seamlessly. To sum up, we've learned how to use a controller advice for global exception handling and how to extend response entity exception handler to customize our error responses even further. This approach makes our application more robust and easier to maintain. Thank you for joining me in this video. In our next session, we'll explore how to manage multiple global exception handlers. Specifically, we'll see how to configure one set of controllers to use Global Exception Handler 1 and another set to use Global Exception Handler 2. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.